So I am Holly Farbo. I've been a hygienist for about 22 years. I was in private practice for about 18 years, and I came to an Aspen Dental clinically. I was there for a year and a half before I came into this position. I am the academic and industry relations manager for hygiene, one of them. I started this position. It was a brand new position, and now our team is growing. I'm the lead now of that team. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm originally from Pittsburgh. I live in Colorado now. So we'll go ahead and go around and have everybody introduce themselves.
My name's Aileen Scardello. I'm the academic manager with Aspen Dental as well. I've been with Aspen a total of about 3 years now. I've been in 2 different positions with Aspen. I live in Colorado. I've been a hygienist since 2003. I graduated here in Colorado as well. I'm a native here, so, and it's a little cold out here today in Colorado.
I saw that.
Yes.
Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Mcgrath. I'm the Director of Doctor Development here at Aspen Dental. I've been here almost 2 years. I've been in dentistry 25 years. I've been a hygienist 21 years. So I practiced hygiene for 4.5 years. And then I transitioned over into implant sales, and then eventually over into sales and then learning and development for Align Technology, the makers of Invisalign. And now I'm here at Aspen. So thanks for having me tonight.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for being here. Emily.
Hey, I'm Emily Miller-Lair. I have been a dental hygienist for 10 years here in Phoenix, Arizona. I've worked clinically, but at Aspen Dental, I started out as the territory manager of hygiene support, and recently have moved over to the academic team, which I absolutely love. Prior to Aspen, I worked for Fortis College in Phoenix as the lead didactic instructor for our senior students. And then before that, I was working clinically. And then before that, I worked for Philips Sonicare and Zoom, which was kind of cool because I got to meet Aspen because they were opening in Arizona right when I started. So I was actually the person that came in and trained the hygienist team how to use the Zoom whitening. So it was a really cool first introductory to Aspen.
Great, thank you. So we all have a little bit of a different story and how we got to Aspen and what our careers were prior to Aspen. So I want you guys to ask questions. I do have some questions that were given to me prior from people. So we'll start off with that. But if you have questions for our panelists, please, go ahead and ask those and I will get going. But first I want to start with, how we got to Aspen. So what led up to us getting to Aspen? And I will start quickly with me. I was in private practice for about 18 years. I worked multiple different jobs. I was temping at the end. I was working 3 separate jobs for full-time hours and I was traveling. So there was Aspen Dental that was 4 miles from me and they were looking for someone. And, I was reluctant. I'll be honest. I was reluctant to go to there because of things that I had heard, but they were offering benefits and there was a lot that I felt, that they were offering. And when I went in for the interview, I really loved the office. So I went there and I absolutely loved it. I fell in love with the way that we saw patients. And from there, I was there about 1.5 years in clinical, and this job opened. And how I found it was really just an email that came through saying, an internal email stating that they were, adding on to this team. And I applied for the position. And honestly, I think part of the reason I got it was because of my experience. Now, I will tell you, I have an associate's degree. I don't have a bachelor's degree. I don't have, any further education than my associate's degree and 18 years of experience at the time. So I really think that's kind of how, that helped me get into this position. So that's how I came to Aspen.
I'll just go next since we kind of won't all jump in at the same time. So, and I didn't mention before, I worked chair side right out of school here in Colorado for about 5 years. And I was introduced to the CEO and founder of Clear Choice Dental Implant Centers, which I went with them for about six and a half years. So it's not that I was looking for any kind of career growth or anything like that. It just kind of fell in my lap. I worked with them teaching exams, training hygienists, hiring hygienists, and to do consultations for implants. They're dental implants that, you know, have the anchored bridges. So did that for a while. I ended up meeting I forget his name, he's a clinical chief officer with Aspen, to help them with their dental implant program at Aspen. That's how I got introduced to Aspen. And about 2 years later, I came on with Aspen as a division director of hygiene support. So that's kind of how I found Aspen. I really loved everything that Aspen was about, and I'm really glad that I ended up, like Holly said, you know, I've heard things too in college about, you know, DSOs and corporate dentistry. So I was very nervous about looking into it, but I'm really glad that I did.
Great. Stephanie?
Yeah, so I was working at Align Technology, and I knew about the DSO world and the DSO market. We had a department that was dedicated to what we called special markets, which was the dental service organizations. And we knew that that's where the market was going. And we talked about this all the time at Align, is the market was shifting, the market was changing, dentistry, the dental industry was changing, and more dental practices were switching over to the DSO and the DSO model. And so that really intrigued me, and I really wanted to be a part of that, where the industry was going. And then I went to an event where I met Bob, and I got to learn about what Aspen was all about and the people that Aspen served. And I was just hooked. I wanted to be a part of that. And I knew that Bob had dedicated resources and time to build out the learning and development part of the business, because if you ever heard Bob talk about learning and development, he says, we're the foundation of this company. We're the backbone of this company. And he's just so dedicated to it and believes in it so much. And it's really rare to see, you know, a CEO talk like that about learning and development. So after that, I was just hooked. So I came here and basically asked for a job.
I love it.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's great.
We are so fortunate to have a CEO who's so dedicated to learning development, and I'd have to say hygiene.
Yeah.
When I first heard about Aspen, I told you it was many years ago when I was working for Philips Sonicare and Zoom, and I started to get to know the offices right as they were opening in Arizona. But what really got me is when I was teaching at Fortis College in Phoenix, I had different DSOs or dental service organizations like Aspen and private practices come in and talk to students. I figured the more information students could get, the more they could make an informed decision about what they wanted to do. And so every year the students would come back and have their junior classmen clean their teeth or whatever and fill in for them. And so every time the students would come back, I would ask what their jobs were really like and kind of get some information for that class I was teaching. Like, you know, is everything that wherever you're working, is everything they're saying true? And Aspen talked a good deal. I mean, they came in, they talked about how the hygienists were going to get all of their hours, how they're going to be treated like a provider, how they're going to own their own business. We talk about run it their way. So when the students would come back, the first thing I would say is all of that true? And year after year, semester after semester, when students would graduate and come back, they would tell me yes. So unfortunately, Fortis was closing its Phoenix chapter where I worked. So the first thing I thought is I have got to get to Aspen Dental, because if a quarter of what they say is true, then I'm going to be really, really happy. And that was 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago. And I have been, everything has exceeded any expectation I could have had. It's just a really great place, especially for dental hygienists. And that's really how I found Aspen and how I've fallen in love with it. And that falling in love, it's like over and over. There's new things every day where I'm like, dang, they really take us seriously as hygienists. And that's something that I didn't always see everywhere. So it matters a lot for me. And unfortunately, you guys are stuck with me for life now.
That's okay. We like you. So one of the questions I hear all the time is, can I move up in a career with an associate's degree? Should I go and get my bachelor's degree? Should I get my master's and forward? So I have an associate's degree. I feel like a lot of my, growth has come from experience, which everybody has to have. But, out of all of us, I probably have the most clinical experience in an office. And that's really what I feel, brought me to be able to move forward. So if you guys would just go around and tell me what your educational background is and how that's helped you, if you think that that's something that, is needed, or how that played out in your career.
So I'll go first. I graduated with an associate's degree as well. And I started to have some back pain and neck pain pretty early on in my career. I only practiced for 4.5 years, and I left because of the pain that I was having. But when I started to have that pain, I knew I had to start seeking out other opportunities and what was going to afford me those opportunities. So I decided to go and get my bachelor's degree, and I did that remotely through Thomas Edison State College in New Jersey. And so I'm grateful I did that. I think that you can definitely move up and move around with an associate's degree. But a bachelor's degree will give you a larger opportunity. And I'm pursuing my master's degree in adult education, which I haven't been in school for quite some time, so it's definitely been an adjustment, but it's great to learn and be in a master's program. And I think that will afford me more opportunities in the future as well.
Yes, great. Thank you. Aileen?
So I have an associate's as well. I went to the Community College of Denver. Since I was a young girl, I've had a master's degree in my brain. I always had that business mind, always asked a ton of questions, probably too many questions. I drove people crazy just because I wanted to know how everything worked and, the money worked. And so I knew that I wanted more. When I first got out of hygiene school, I thought really I was going to do hygiene forever. But like Stephanie said, your body starts hurting possibly, right? Not every time, but I know hygienists who've been hygienists for 30 years. And I know some who, can't do it because it starts ergonomically affecting them. So I wasn't sure, but I did know that I wanted more to be on the business aspect of it. So I just always made sure that I was asking all the right questions, getting to know the right people. I always think it's better for education. So don't get me wrong. I think, bachelor's, masters are fantastic, phenomenal. Everyone should have a great education. I didn't. I just did it with my people skills, with my, just getting to know people. It's not always what you know, it's who you know sometimes as well. So, and having both of those skills is great. So, yeah. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm at with the whole associate's degree versus a master's. It's important with an education, but you can also do it without.
Great. Thank you. Emily.
So I would say it depends. I have my master's in education. I just recently got it actually with Amber, who's on the call. Shout out to Amber. So that was something that I started when I was teaching. If you're going the teaching route, you absolutely need to get at least a bachelor's. If you're going to teach long-term and you're thinking about directorships, you're going to have to have the master's. That being said, if you get in with a really great dental service organization like Aspen, who really takes dental hygiene seriously, many, many people move up through experience and from specifically knowing about the company, right? So you know how Aspen works. That's really useful knowledge. And that is really sought after more than probably a higher level degree. So I would say it really depends on what you need. I getting into Philips, when I worked for Sonicare, you had to have a bachelor's to get in. So there's jobs like that. I would say a lot of sales jobs are that way, but not all. But if you're thinking about a route, what I would do is years before you even apply, look at what they're asking for and kind of make decisions from there on what you want. It never hurts to get more education, but do you get that return on investment and, and return on your time? That's important to know. So I would advise to kind of look at the path you're looking at and look at what that requires. And then I most strongly advise, because I have a huge bias, to come to Aspen because there's internally, and then you can go at your pace with your education. But yes, I'm very biased there. So.
And Holly, can I add one more thing?
Sure,
there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Please.
I know this is just a conversation. So
yeah.
And like I said, I agree 100% with what Emily just said, and Stephanie as well. I wanted to point out one thing too, though. I've been a director two times now of companies, and with an associate's degree. And I do agree that, like Emily said, you should prepare, see what you need. And most companies do ask for at least a bachelor's. So that's true. But if you have, if you get into a company and you find a good mentor and a good coach, and you have the willingness and the open-mindedness to learn, so there's always that opportunity in that direction as well. Not that I'm trying to, go against education, because that's not what I'm trying to say, but it just, it can help you in your career.
Lots of avenues to the same place.
Exactly.
Right. And, honestly, even for me, 22 years out of being a hygienist, that I actually thought about, continuing on with my bachelor's for personal growth. You know what I mean? It's always nice to continue to learn. And sometimes just for personal growth that you might want to do that. It is nice to know that there are options. Because I feel like sometimes, and I get this question, I only have an associate's degree, which I never see it that way, but, where can I go from here? And I don't think there's a lot of, when you're in a private practice sometimes, or when you're in a practice, you don't always know what your options may be from there. Is it just going and getting your education and going to teach dental hygiene school, or what? So this is part of the reason why I did this webinar, so that we could look at the different avenues that people can take.
And you're so right, Holly. I will say, I know a lot of people who think that and Aileen, who think the education's the key. So they go get that bachelor's, but they don't network or meet other people. And so they've got this, and now they kind of get disheartened, like, I did everything and I'm still here. So
Yes.
It's a good point that it takes networking and everything.
Yeah, which leads to my next question for you guys, which is thinking back on your careers and where you started, what do you say would be some of the most important skill sets or things that maybe people can, whether it be classes or just even general courses like Excel or something like that? What kind of skill sets do you wish that you would have maybe gotten early on that would have helped you through your career?
I would say get some presenting experience in any way possible, for anything, for free, whatever. Yeah. That's just a really great skill that you can translate into almost anything.
I agree. Presenting is a huge one. Practice it, own something, champion something, whether it's something on ergonomics, and learn how to present it, practice presenting it, volunteer to present it, because it's something that you can do later on. Everybody wants to know something that you know. So that's something great to do. So I agree with that. For myself, like Excel was huge when I started getting into the business side of dentistry. Everybody knew Excel but me. Why the heck didn't I go learn Excel early on? I didn't know how to work it. And I ended up getting, mentored by someone who helped me with Excel. Now I still take Excel classes. So I think Excel, PowerPoint, Word, But I wanted to mention one quick thing that you guys might not think about is even something as simple as your Outlook mailbox. I mean, when I had to hire and train people and I'd ask them, you know, go ahead and turn on your computer, and they'd say, where's the start button? You know, so little things like that. How do you send a calendar invite? So there's so many things that you can learn that are free, you know, just to practice on your computer. So just little things like that are even valuable.
You know, Outlook, when one of the things in Outlook that was gold for me when I was at Align Technology was how to do a mail merge.
Yes.
I went from
I think we just learned
hours of working, creating these letters to hundreds of people to literally 30 seconds, and it changed my life. So that was key gold for me.
Yes.
When I look back, I really think it's about, for me, it's about leadership development and situational leadership and how to influence. And I think that ties into the networking that we were talking about, right? I find that people who have those skills really can maneuver very well within a company, within an organization, and really excel. So I wish I had done it earlier.
Right. And, you know, and for me, I think that too, maybe I like to hear this. And again, like I said, a lot of this is because we're all at home right now, at least I am. You know, you get online and you read and you see what people are looking at and looking for. And, you know, your organizations like the ADHA, your local chapters, getting involved with that. A lot of times they're really wanting people to help and be in leadership roles in those, in your states. And that actually can get you a lot of maybe the speaking courses and things like that. So
networking for sure.
Networking, absolutely. And, you know, getting out, I know for me being 18 years in an office, I didn't get out very much. You know, you go to work every day, you come home, you're exhausted. You don't want to even look at your husband, let alone other people. So, I mean, it's you kind of get stuck into that rut of, you know, working and coming home and just repeating. So to get out there and, you know, meet people and network and really kind of build something, and you would be able to see a lot more that's out there, you know.
Yeah, just to tag along to that part,
yeah.
Holly, you know, in a private practice, it's interesting because you learn so much, you know, when you're in college, and then you get out to your private practice or wherever you're at. It's like you don't, what you learn is your CEs, right? You're always taking your CEs because you need to have your CEs, but you're not learning anything else really at that business. At least I didn't. I know that, you know, I never learned anything really about how the business ran or leadership skills. I think, Stephanie, you hit on one of my favorite topics, which is leadership, because I think it's such a valuable tool to learn, to be mentored. How are you a good leader? How are you an influential leader? That's really important. So my point there, anyway, I got off on a tangent, but just any kind of a practice that you're at, and you're not learning outside the box, you know, then it's like Holly said, you go home and you just do the same thing every day, and you're not challenging your brain. So it is kind of fun to go outside your box and outside your comfort zone to learn new things.
Yeah, absolutely. So real quickly, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what we do as far as our jobs. So Stephanie, can you just give a little background on what, you know, your position is and what that entails here at Aspen?
Sure. So I lead the strategy and execution for doctor development. And I don't know if any of you guys keep tabs on the doctor programs and what we're doing, but we used to have a program called EDGE, which was successful. But that has been sunsetted, and we're looking, we have created a roadmap for doctors that will give them continual development throughout every stage of their career. So, you know, no matter if you're an associate or an MCD or a practice partner, there's always growth at each level, depending on, you know, if you're acclimating to that role, or if you need to master that role, or if you want to propel your career into the next phase. So if an MCD practice owner, what development does that MCD need in order to get there? So we've developed a road in order to help doctors succeed no matter what level and no matter what goals they have here at Aspen. So we've started, the roadmap is very robust, and it's revolves around 3 categories. It's the clinical development that they need, the practice management and business development, as well as the leadership development. So all 3 of those things make up the doctor development roadmap. So we've started executing these programs. The first one you might have heard of, it's called Discover Aspen. It's an orientation program for doctors, and it's been quite successful. Doctors' engagement levels have increased, and we're keeping more doctors as a result of that, which is really great. And we are now executing what's called Beyond the Chair, which really focuses on that practice management, leadership development, and there is some clinical components to it as well. But keep in mind that we truly believe in learning and development, that doctors will learn and they will grow, they'll be more engaged, but as a result of that, we will meet our business goals as an organization as well. So it's a win-win situation. So we do have business goals that are tied to our programs, and we need to answer to those, right? So scorecard too. We have a scorecard. We deliver that to Bob and the executive leadership team.
That's wonderful. Before I get to you guys, I do have a couple questions that I just want to get to, because I want to make sure that we get this. So the first question is, what is the average time working from home versus working in person with a non-clinical role at Aspen, and is traveling required? So,
Ollie, do you want me to take that one on as a THS?
Sure. Since Emily and Aileen both have multiple roles here, and then we'll see what Stephanie's is, and then, yes, go ahead.
So you'll probably see this one if you go on Indeed. It's everywhere. We have this position across the nation for dental hygienists. It's the territory manager of hygiene support. It generally does require some travel. There's no clinical work. And what you are is you're essentially a coach, a business coach for your dental hygienists. So you're really talking arm to arm, hygienist to hygienist, and helping them with things like verbiage and maybe time management, if that's something that's usually not an issue, but you're helping them with whatever they need. And you're really a support role for hygienists over a couple of states. So that one does require travel. It typically has 1 day at home, like a business day, 3 days travel, and 1 day local, to answer the question there. Do you want me to answer the crazy time networking one too?
Yeah, well, when you travel, how far do you travel? What's that look like as far as your travel with a TMHS role?
Yeah, so in the TMHS role, on Mondays, you're going to travel locally. So that's going to be somewhere that's probably about an hour or less from your home. Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, you're going to travel further. It really depends on your area. For me, most of mine were within 2 hours, but there were a few where I had to jump on a plane and it was, 6 hours. So I would be spending the night for those 3 days. And then Fridays, I would spend at home doing more admin stuff. So typically for me, when I was in the role, I would spend the first 4 days about an hour away, because most of them were with an hour. And then I would be home on Fridays, but typically those in between 3 days can be further out depending on how the area is split up among the offices.
Good. You can go back to the networking, but let me go to Aileen really quick. The division director role of hygiene support. Can you just give a little background on that and how your day worked as far as your travel and, how that worked?
Absolutely. So it was a little different for me because I lived in Colorado. At the time, we didn't have any offices here in Colorado. We are opening 6 offices here in 2021. So, but at the time, there were no offices in Colorado. So every week I was traveling. So I would get on a plane I worked from home on Mondays, and we did business meetings, right? So everybody could be on the same page and in alignment. I was a division director of hygiene support, it's called. So I'd leave on a Tuesday, I'd come home Thursday night, and then I'd work with my team. So I had 4 hygiene managers like Emily on my team in my division. So I would work with them on Fridays, and we'd all catch up, talk about how our week went, but we are all here just to support. So I like to say we care for the people who care for the people who care for the patients. and then like Emily cared for the people who care for the patients. So well, we're all here as a big support group. But yeah, I would say probably 80% travel in that role for me, living in a state where there were no offices.
And Stephanie, for you, how is your travel, and do you live local, or how does your day work there?
So I do not travel, which is great. I don't even get in my car because it's a walk to the office, which is wonderful here in Chicago. I've been working remotely since COVID, but I do go into the office every so often, every other week. Post-COVID and before COVID, we would be required to be there 4 to 5 days a week. So I'm in the office every day, working cross-functionally with the teams there.
Good. So we have 2 support offices. One is in Syracuse, New York, and the other is in Chicago. Those are our support centers. So most of the people that work in the Chicago office or the Syracuse office are local. And we do have a call center in Chandler, Arizona also, just to give a little background. So I'll take on real quick the academic team, just because unfortunately or fortunately, Emily and Aileen came during COVID, so they haven't gotten to actually travel with the team yet. So as an academic manager, there is a lot, there's a lot of travel, but it's the way you can travel as much as you want. So for me, I was ready to get out. I wanted to travel everywhere. I lived in Pennsylvania. My territory was everything west of Tennessee by choice. So I traveled a lot, but generally we deal with hygiene schools. So we go around the country, we talk to hygiene schools, we try to build relationships with those schools to kind of give information about what a DSO is in general, and obviously about Aspen. We answer questions. Sometimes we would we'll do events with students, something fun, just to get them out. So pre-COVID, the travel was at least once a week. So we would have maybe one event a week, and whether that be an ADHA meeting or a school visit, like a lunch and learn. So we tried to at least have one a week. So I always used to say it's a 3-day travel, just because I would fly in the night before, do the event. Depending on the time of the event, sometimes I could fly out that same day and it would be a 2-day event. The rest was at home, building relationships, sending out emails, and trying to do. Now we have another forum, which is Zoom, obviously. And so we have this to fall back on. We do a lot of events virtually now. And so we have been strictly at home until travel starts to lift. So it's been a learning curve, but I will tell you that it's been great. And, so I'm looking forward to getting back out, because I honestly like to travel. Now, there are positions in Aspen that, are not clinical positions, but again, like Stephanie, she doesn't travel. She's right there. If you're not going to travel, I would assume that you would have to be at or near an office like Chicago or Syracuse to be going into the office. But we also have a recruiter position. Unfortunately, our recruiter, she had an emergency that she couldn't be on tonight. The recruiting job is from home strictly. They very rarely travel. If we have students that come in or leads that we get, they will reach out to those people if there's a job in their area. So that is specifically an at-home job. So that's always something also.
And we have quite a few hygienists on the recruiting team, I think.
Yes.
We do.
Holly, I just wanted to add something real quick as far as the travel goes, because there's also a lot of travel for leadership stuff too. So it's not all just work related travel.
Right.
We've had lots of fun at our Vibe and leadership, the SBs, and just there's a lot of travel to help benefit and grow you as a person, as a leader, and or whatever department you're in as well.
You just made me homesick. I miss that. I miss that fun stuff. Zoom does some of it, but I can't wait till we can do those things again in person.
Yeah.
I actually have met every one of you in person at one time or the other. And it seems like it's been so long ago. Emily, you might not have remembered, but I'm sure we met at one of our leadership retreats, which is nice. So what do you feel the benefit is as far as working at Aspen that has helped your career or given you more opportunity for career growth?
I think for me, I've always kind of wanted something outside the chair. I enjoyed my chair time, but I really wanted something outside the chair. And I'm the kind of person that's kind of curious. I like to try different things. And the thing about Aspen is there's many different things for hygienists. So I may have started out like a territory manager. Now I'm on the academic team, and who knows what 5 or 10 years will bring. And I just like that you can explore other parts of yourself in one place, because before that I was exploring other parts of my self in different places, and that makes your vacation not go into one place. It also makes it so you're always switching over your 401k, and it can make you look like a hopper when you're more of I would say an explorer or a curious person. So I like that it opens up that curiosity for someone who's interested in that. So for me, I know I'm a little different than maybe your average Joe on that, but that was why Aspen was different for me, because it was all these things that you can be under one roof and you can explore different parts of you.
Right.
So for me, I think that if I don't feel stretched in a job, I kind of feel like I'm bored a little bit, right? So I need a little bit of a challenge. And learning and development, it's a traditional learning and development department, and one that I've never worked in before. So that was a stretch for me. And I've learned a ton about how to work in that kind of a department and how to work in it efficiently and well. One of the things that continually stretches me is I am presenting in front of executive leadership quite often. And it's, it's a little nerve-wracking. It's a lot of preparation. It's something I'm still getting used to, but when it's done and I'm done, I just feel like a rock star afterwards. It feels really good.
From what I hear, you are a rock star.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I try. Most of the time I don't feel that way, but I try. And, so it's been great. And one of the great things about Aspen is, to your point, Emily, is if you want to go in a direction, a lot of times all you need to do is speak up, right? You just need to speak up and say, this is where I want to go, this is where I want to be. It's so collaborative here. People want to help other people. So, if you want to go somewhere, speak up, definitely.
Right, I agree. And I love the growth and development as well. That's one thing that's really kept me here at Aspen, why I want to stay with Aspen. They're always growing their own people. I mean, like you started from the beginning, Bob, and everybody at the top, the leadership team, they're so caring about everybody, and they want to grow and develop everyone. And that's huge for me. The culture, I call it the culture of Aspen, is just, they have such a strong culture about their team, their patients. And that's really what keeps me, why I love Aspen so much.
Yeah. And, for me, again, I didn't have a lot of background outside the chair, but I fell in love with the clinical part of Aspen, and that drove me to really want to get that word out, because I felt like, you know, there was some negative things that were being said and I wasn't seeing that. And I wanted to know why. And it was really about the love of actually doing the job and going from there and getting that word out. And for me, as far as development, I mean, I honestly, I feel like this, and I'm not just saying this, I really owe Aspen so much, because my career has developed tremendously. You know, I did or had an article published at the ADHA magazine about DSOs. I am speaking. We all have learned the CE to present CE, the AAP guidelines, the new guidelines for the American Academy of Periodontology, and I'm presenting that at the ADHA. Just it's opened so many doors for me that I never even knew were out there. You know, so for me, you know, it's been an amazing journey, and I really believe in the core values in the background of what Aspen, you know, what they do and how they treat their patients.
Holly, to your point, I mean, the thousands and thousands of dollars that we all have saved on the growth and development that would cost, you know, you as a person to go seek those classes out, and we're, you know, we've all gotten that for free. DDI courses I've taken through Aspen. I mean, just, it's amazing.
Yeah. Emily, real quick, do you want to get back? And I forgot the question about how is everyone networking in these crazy times?
Yes, Kara's question. Kara and anybody else, feel free to ask us questions. You know, I'm going to plug our LinkedIn. So you need to add us all on LinkedIn. That's for sure a way. But I wanted to give a tip that someone did years ago. I'm not always I'm a networker in the sense that I'm curious about people. So I always ask them about themselves and I like to learn about them. And I think that always helps with networking. But one of the best things that someone else did that I thought, well, that was so smart. I was working at Philips. She wanted to work at Philips and she would invite me to lunch. And I know this is COVID, so that's a little more difficult. Maybe you would invite someone on a Zoom meeting just to chat and have coffee or something. And she would just ask questions or do an informational interview to ask questions about it. And sure as anything, when I moved to a different position, she ended up taking over that position because she had asked enough questions and really prepared herself to get in. And I think that's really like the core of networking. It's just, to me, being curious about people in a genuine way. And I guess that's what I would suggest is just ask people, can I do an informational interview? I'm really curious about what you do, without expecting maybe something in return at that very moment, to really do it for your own development and your own learning. And that would, I guess, be my suggestion if that's helpful.
Yeah,
I think that's great advice. I think, you know, people always love to, you know, talk about themselves. So asking questions to people about themselves, I mean, it's always, I think that's always very productive.
Yeah. Aileen, anything else on that?
I agree with Emily, everything she said. I mean, I think, you know, the networking is huge. And like you said, being genuine about it. I mean, literally, we have taken boot camps on Instagram. I'm an old schooler, so I didn't have any social networking, okay, when I came here for this academic role. I was always on LinkedIn and Facebook, but more recently, I've learned how to use them to a much greater ability than how I knew them. So learning to network has been huge for me right now in this job. I mean, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. LinkedIn's really huge. You all should learn how to get on a LinkedIn page if you're not on one, and work on your profile and investigate. So there's a little task for you all tonight to start on. One thing you can do.
Yeah, definitely LinkedIn, because when I first got here, one of the territory hygiene managers I was working for, she's like, "Oh, do you have a LinkedIn?" And I'm like, "I don't know." I mean, like, I knew what it was, but I didn't really know the real value of it. And as a professional, you know, LinkedIn, there's so many resources, and networking is so easy on there. You know, you can and really learn a lot.
Holly, that's how I met. Part of the way I got this position was partially you and saying I wanted to be you when I grew up, and here I am. But also I saw Joel, who's our boss, and he was on LinkedIn inviting people. And when I got an invite, I said, hey, I'd love to chat via Zoom. And he wrote back, okay, when do you want to chat via Zoom? And next thing you know, I got to ask him questions about, what he does and everything that his team does. And I really kind of got an insider look at it. So especially nowadays, people are open to, if you just ask, I mean, what are they going to tell you? No. I mean, is that the worst thing? They could say, no, I don't want to meet with you. Okay, well, I'm where I was when I started then. So just don't be afraid to ask people, and don't feel rejection if they don't respond.
Yeah, and most people are on LinkedIn as far as that platform is concerned to promote themselves. Whether it be something a webinar they're doing, or something that they're selling, or whatever they're doing there. And so I'm sure they would be more than welcome or happy to answer questions on LinkedIn, or to just even reach out. And I'm just reading that. I'm sorry.
We got a new question.
Oh, yeah. It says, can we explore the pay scale versus clinical hygiene? So does somebody want to take that?
Mine's really similar. Well, it's stronger than I ever was in clinical dental hygiene full-time. But I would say that it probably depends on the job. I don't know every job, but I know versus like when I was in academics, where I was paid significantly lower than a clinical dental hygienist would make. And I know that's all across the board, depends on where you are. It can be different. I think this aligns up right with it. And depending on where you are, maybe a little more generous.
Mm-hmm. For me, I did well as a hygienist. Don't get me wrong. I live here in Colorado. The pay scale here in Colorado, it might be a little higher just because our cost of living here is a little higher. But in every role that I've been in, other than clinical hygiene, I have achieved higher compensation in every role that I've been in so far. So there are always those incentive based though that help you get to those goals, to achieve those goals. So it's not like it's just sometimes set as a base salary. It's incentive goals as well. But I know that Emily, like for you in education, we've talked about this before. It might be a little lower pay scale, but then I think with different roles that I've been in, it's definitely I've achieved more than being a hygienist, a clinical hygienist.
So it's been some time since I've practiced. So I'm definitely making more than I was as a hygienist back then. In terms of corporate, my experience has been it's been more than hygiene. At Align Technology, for 6 years, there was a split, right? So there was a base salary and then there was an incentive. So the base salary was lower than the what hygienists typically make, but then the incentives would typically make up for that and then some.
Now, I was a hygienist in Pennsylvania. So, I mean, the job that I'm doing now is way more than that. Colorado, I live there now. And like Aileen said, that the cost of living is higher. So the hourly rates are higher for a hygienist. I'm thinking I still make more in this end than a clinical hygienist. Now Aspen is coming to Colorado, and I know they have such an amazing incentive program. So I might make more money as a clinical hygienist, but I will tell you that I love this job and I wouldn't go back. But let me just real quick.
Oh, we got another question.
Yeah. Okay. So she's about to graduate hygiene school in May this year. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Especially during COVID. That's a very big feat. I have been considering corporate dental. If you have any pros or cons you'd like to share, that would be awesome. Okay. Perfect.
I have one.
Yeah, go ahead. No, you go. You go.
Just right off the top, health benefits.
That's definitely a pro.
Those are real.
That's a real. So I just wanted to say, because of course in hygiene school, I'd mentioned earlier that I had been told, DSOs, dental service organizations are the devil, right? They, they're bad. So I didn't have healthcare for 5 years because I, worked in private practice, and unfortunately, a lot of dentists can't afford healthcare benefits for their employees. They want to, but they can't do it. So that was one thing that was huge for me is, just having all the benefit package, with working for corporate dentistry. I know that's not a clinical answer I'm giving you because there's so many other benefits as well, being autonomous as a hygienist, with Aspen Dental, things like that. But I think, if you have a family and you need to take care of them, that's a huge benefit for me.
Mm-hmm.
I there's so many, you don't even want to get me started, but
yeah, exactly.
We could do a whole nother webinar on that.
Practice. It wasn't a bad experience. I would never down private practice if that's what someone wants to do. But I will say I like the development that you can achieve. And when I went out of school, just like you are, Peyton, I didn't know what I wanted then. Like then if you asked me what I wanted, I would have said, I want to be a clinical hygienist for the next 90 years. And quickly that changed for me. So what I like about Aspen is that if that changes for you, there's a place to go. You've already put in some time and you already know some stuff about this company that can help elevate you. So that's really huge. The learning and development, even if you wanted to stay clinical forever, it's gigantic. I've never seen anything like it. But also, and this is going to sound, I'm trying to figure out how to word this. The structure when you have a private practice, which I did enjoy my private practice, but the structure is that your owner is also like your HR, your everything. And what I liked about the Aspen structure is a lot of times with the dentist that you work with, you're kind of coworkers or there's other checks and balances. And so I always like having that, not that I need it, but I like to know that, if I'm being asked to do something I shouldn't be doing, that I have someone there. There's other checks and balances besides just one person. Right. And I know that sounds kind of silly, but there are times where that really matters. And likewise, you have all these hygienists that you can bounce ideas off of, where sometimes you walk into a practice, you're brand new, and it's just you. So whatever ideas you've come in with are the ideas you're going to leave with, right? So I think that's another advantage, having a lot of people that you can bounce ideas off of. So,
yeah.
And to your point, Emily, the thing that really sticks out to me is the pros to corporate dentistry is the opportunity.
Yeah.
So it's, you can do, practice clinically, but it's easy to move into another place within, if you want it to move into the corporate and move into learning and development, move into talent acquisition, it's much easier to do so here and gain that experience than it would be if you were in private practice and trying to find something else.
Yes. And they're so supportive of, your lateral moves throughout the company. I mean, we've had people who have changed. Okay, this didn't work for me. It was too much travel and went on to a different team, and of course we never like to lose anybody. And of course, Aileen and Emily are stuck with me because they're not leaving. But, it's always nice to know that there is that support, that they do support you if you want to move on to something else. If you say, Stephanie, hey, I'd love to learn more about what you're doing. Stephanie's a colleague of mine. I mean, she's in Chicago. Emily's in Arizona. Aileen and I get to see each other because we're in the same state. But I mean, it's still that it's a completely different career than what I'm doing now, but it's within my group to talk to her and see what that looks like. Is there something in learning and development that I might want to do? So that is definitely a pro. I will tell you one of the cons, and someone said this and it just struck me. One of the cons is that you feel like you have to defend where you work. I mean, there are times when you say, I work for Aspen Dental, and you feel like people, there's a stigma there. And and it's a shame. It's very sad to me because there shouldn't be. I think if people came in and saw what we actually do on a regular basis and saw the type of support, I don't think that would happen. What we do for our doctors that come in, our doctors own our offices, and the development that we give to them, what Stephanie does. And, for our students, we value hygiene so much, even to the student. We support these hygiene schools, whether or not these hygienists come to Aspen or not. It's because we're hygienists and we value that. And we are so fortunate to work for a company that values that. Real quick, here's a question. Is it required to start out as a clinical hygienist, or is it possible to go right into territory hygiene?
I will. That one?
Yeah, go, please.
Well, only because I know that most of our employees are hired internally, but I was one of the, the small percentages that was hired externally. So I think that, what is it, like 97% of hygiene directors are hired internally, and what is it, 96% of hygiene managers are hired internally, and on and on. But there is, definitely possibilities. I know Kendra, who is a director, she was also hired externally. So not necessarily, but your chances are better if you are, coming from inside the company.
I think we're always going to look at what you might have to offer, but there is something to be said about really understanding what an Aspen Dental clinical hygienist does, because we manage things differently. We break down barriers. It's not like private practice in the sense that we really work with all of our patients to break down financial barriers, all kinds of barriers that they have differently than I've ever experienced outside of Aspen. So the benefit of starting with us clinically is that knowledge base that you're going to have. And really that's going to help you with any other part of the business too. Yeah. Not saying that you couldn't bring something and never, a lot of us did come externally, or some of us did come externally, but there's such an advantage for you if you start out clinically here.
Yeah.
I do have to say, if I could just interject for one.
Yeah, no, please.
I wish that I worked at Aspen because, I worked clinically to get that knowledge, just because it's harder for me than I think it is for you guys, because you have that reference point. You were there in the trenches, and for me, it's not as easy. So I would definitely recommend it.
And for
agree,
me,
Stephanie.
Yeah. For me, obviously, yes. I feel like in order to really believe in what we do every day, you kind of have to live it in an aspect, because then you really know that what you're doing, or like for us on the academic team, we're talking to hygiene students about coming to Aspen. I feel like if you haven't been at Aspen, it's a little bit more difficult. Not that you can't learn that. And again, like Emily said, we do hire outside. There are times where, maybe, we've had directors and territory hygiene managers that actually went back to clinical. Like they just decided that they liked the clinical part of it and they wanted to go back to that, And so then maybe we have an opening where there's not a lot of people who want to leave their clinical job, and there would be an opening outside. It's always, offered to internal people, and we like to promote from within. That's part of Aspen and part of the career growth. So I would always recommend that you come on as a hygienist. And I know for me, if it wasn't for this job coming up, I would have stayed at Aspen clinically for the rest of my career, because I loved it that much. It was a breath of fresh air for me.
After like 20 years.
Yeah. For me, I was burnt out, and I came to Aspen and I'm like, bebopping around the office because I just loved it so much. It took so much pressure off of me, the way that we did our patients, when we saw our patients, the clinical autonomy I had. I actually got to do things that I felt were necessary. The doctor was asking my opinion, you know, and he was more of a colleague than a boss to me. I think that kind of goes back on Emily's point, where, you know, if there's something that's going on in the office, that you have that network of support that you can go to, instead of at a private practice where the doctor is the end all be all, because he or she is everything. It's HR and, you know, all of that. So, you know, I would suggest that, but it's not absolutely 100% necessary. Now that I talked completely, because you guys know me.
Well, I just said, you know, when I first got on, you know, I was external, like I said, and I did go get my Iowa license as a hygienist, and that was a lot of work, just because I wanted to sit in the chair and know what it was like to work clinically at Aspen. So I did do that. It was quite a challenge getting that license going in Iowa, but I did do that, and it did help me a lot. I was like you, Stephanie, was just like, you know, I had to learn everything right at once. Even time zones. So yeah, so
it's still an issue.
Yeah. So yeah, so there is a lot to learn, but I was really grateful that I did sit down as a hygienist for a little while. I think I did for about a month total, and it did help a lot.
Yeah. Okay, guys, we blew through that hour very quickly. So I really, wait, let me see if there's any more questions. If you guys have any last minute questions, please. Does Aspen purchase established practices, or is it brand new offices, or both? So we do not purchase any established practices. All of our offices are built from the ground up. So de novo offices. So yes, we do not acquire practices, and all of our offices are branded Aspen. So, you know, you see the Aspen brand, which we're proud of. So, they are all dentist owned, though. They are all owned by the dentist. It's just that they're branded Aspen. Oh, and another question. Let's see. What is onboard training like?
So onboard training is awesome. It's changed a little with COVID, but it's still pretty cool. So you come in as a brand new dental hygienist, and you're going to have 2 weeks of training. The first week is more of process training. So it's understanding how your computer works, or not how your, I know you know how a computer works, but how our software works, and kind of getting used to how our flow works, and asking any questions with a hygienist that's there with you. And in tandem, you're also taking some online courses during the day while you're shadowing this hygienist, where you're meeting with other people who are also in their first week in whatever part of the country they're in. So you do this for 2 weeks, and part of the second week, you typically take over the chair, and that really gives you an opportunity to try it out in real time and ask questions and work through any issues. I know that we did have, and Stephanie may know this better than me, we did have a program about 3 months later that's kind of an advanced training. And in that training, you would learn even more business questions that you might have about how to run your hygiene chair. And then in between, you always have a mentor, and you have a territory manager of hygiene support. So those are at least 2, and many times there's more people that you can always reach out to if you have questions that aren't getting answered for you in the office, or if you maybe forgot something for training and need a resource. Those people are always available for you during your first couple of weeks, or forever actually, but you'll get to know them within your first 2 weeks.
Yeah, I really love that about the training at Aspen, because you know, no one gets thrown into the fire, which is something that's very scary, especially for people, our hygiene students coming right out of college. It's a scary thing walking into a practice. You're unsure of yourself. I remember I felt that way. So I love that about Aspen. The training aspect was huge for me. How well they take care of their hygienist, train them. Do they still have HOP? Is that correct?
Yes, and that's that's like the hygiene version of the doctor development.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
It's digital right now, but yes, we still have HOP.
That's amazing. I mean, Maureen House, Jan LeBeau, they're amazing mentor leaders. And I know that they were teaching that training class. I don't know if they still are anymore, but it was amazing to learn from them.
You still get to meet them during the training.
Yes.
I think Bella's running the HOP officially, like the whole thing, but you still get to meet with the VPs. There's always time for new employees when it comes to our clinical vice presidents.
So we have one more question. What are the requirements for transferring to move to another state? So if someone starts with an Aspen as a hygienist in one state, how do they transfer to another state?
I've done a few lately, or before I started, so I'll answer it real quick. First, you have to reach out to, you've got practice owners, right? So you just talk to your TMHS, let them know what you're looking at. You're going to have to license in the state that you're going, and that's the big thing. And then from there, we just reach out to both owners, because it's usually going to be different owners in different places. Make sure everybody's A-okay with that, and we got the where you are filled, and then we can transfer you. And I have had one gal, her name's Marjorie, and she's going to Colorado. She's in New Mexico. She's been to New Mexico twice, like back and forth, and Tennessee, and now she's going to Colorado. So I can always refer you to Marjorie if you really want to know how to do it. She's been with us 4 years and has been in a different state for every year.
Yeah. There are no Aspens in Hawaii, because if there were, that's my area. I already claimed
I've
Hawaii.
always
for
been able to
neighbors.
transfer, yes.
I'm your neighbor.
Oh, that's my friend Mary J. She's from Hawaii.
No, unfortunately, we are in 43 states now, with Colorado coming in. So yeah, we're out there, but not Alaska, not Hawaii, Wyoming, Montana, Nevada.
I'm glad it's not in Hawaii, because Mary Jane needs to come back to Arizona.
Mary Jane, come back to Arizona. We'll take you.
We need to hike.
All right, guys. Well, I thank you. Oh, wait. Where are the 6 offices going to be in Colorado?
Loveland, Lakewood, Westminster, Colorado Springs, and let's see, Loveland, Lakewood, Westminster, Colorado Springs, Lafayette, and they're considering the last one. So not real sure on that last one.
I thought I originally heard 2 in Colorado Springs area. So maybe that, I live in Pueblo. It's probably never going to be Pueblo, not at least for a while until we build up the rest of them. But yeah, so that's good. Aileen, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm impressed.
I know, right?
I have it right
Don't
there on my
ask me
wall.
in Arizona. It's going to take 10 minutes.
You're welcome to everyone. Thank you all for joining. Thank you to my panelists. You guys were amazing. I can't wait to see you in person. And so that was great. Thank you very much. We're going to be having this again. We're also doing a 3-part series where we do resume writing and interviewing techniques also as part of our series. So we'll be rolling those out each month.
Yeah, so sign up for those.
All right, guys.
Great.
Oh, wait.
Thank
Is there
you,
one more
everybody.
question? Hold on. Let me see.
Okay.
You just said thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Okay, good. I wanted to make sure I got everybody because I'm a talker.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Have a
everybody.
good night.
Guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.